Umovity. Mobility for humanity.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today we have PTV experts Bill Cisco and Adam Lynch, and Econolyte expert Brian Griggs has a presentation on integrating Centracs and Vistro traffic management and traffic planning. Just a couple items before we get started. Just a reminder, we will provide a recording of the session sent in a follow-up email. At the end of this session, we will also have a Q&A. You can enter your questions in the question box at any time throughout the presentation. Our last two PTV Talk sessions are PTV Zoom on June 1st and another presentation by Bill and Adam on PTV Vistro on June 15th. These sessions will be emailed separately to register. If you're interested, please join one of our next web-based training courses. We have Vistro Introduction on May 24th and May 25th, and VZIM, UDAs, and Attribute Modifications on June 1st. You can find more information about these trainings, pricing, and registration at ptvgroup.com under Events and Trainings. And last, we have a few poll questions today that will be asked throughout the webinar. They will only take a moment of your time, and we appreciate your participation. Now I'll let Adam take over the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. So today's agenda on this talk, we're going to talk about the Umovity ecosystem, and I'll introduce you to what Umovity is in just a second. That may be new to some of you. And then we'll discuss the benefits of integrating your system, mainly with Vistro and Centracs on this particular chat. And then we'll show how this integration works on the Vistro side as well as the Centrac side. And then finally, a few bullet points on what we're currently working on and what's coming up next with this connection between Vistro and Centracs and other products within PTV. And then at the end, again, as Tiffany mentioned, we'll have the Q&A session. So the Umovity ecosystem, this may be, again, the first time you have seen or heard about the Umovity partnership, and it's the unified brand between Econolyte and PTV Mobility. So let's take a minute to talk about this. Our overall mission is to provide the best mobility for humanity. You can see our tagline for Umovity is mobility for humanity. And we're doing this through the advanced technology that we offer both at PTV as well as Econolyte. We come together as a one-stop shop, and we're delivering smart and sustainable mobility solutions for you. And importantly, as Econolyte and as PTV join forces together as this unified brand, we're still the same companies and the same people that you've worked with for all those years. I mean, me and Bill, we're from the PTV mobility side, and you see us on PTV Talks all the time. And then the Econolyte crew that you chat to about your equipment, hardware, and solutions, they're still the same crew on that side. The difference is now we're just sharing the same advisory board and CEO, and having this synergies between the advisory board and the CEO will help us grow and integrate together and move forward together. So today's presentation, you'll see our first steps in this growth together with the Centracs and Vistro integration. So I'm pretty happy to show you this. So the touch points in the Umovity ecosystem, let's talk about that. Most of you on this call, if you're PTV fans, probably have seen our traffic suite wheel that we have here. And this shows the integrated solutions from the PTV side, from Vistro, VISM, and VSUM. And you probably have seen the Econolyte wheel. These are the pillars of offerings from Econolyte. And it shows the areas where the hardware and software applications kind of match these real world use cases and sections within a typical process. But if you superimpose the two, you start seeing where Umovity is really starting to combine the offering and show off a little bit. You see now the PTV products are on top of these pillars of offering, from econolytes, areas of applications, and there's a really nice overlap and synergy between all of the products and offerings that we have. And since this is a Vistro presentation, because it was a PTV Talks for Vistro with Centracs, let's focus on the specific places where Vistro may be part of this process. You may encounter Vistro in integration and implementation at the very beginning of a process or project, all the way down to looking at detectors within sensors within an econolyte process as well, and then looking into system planning and design planning or something like that. So Vistro is pretty much well represented within this Umovity ecosystem, which is really, really exciting. Now, most of you are familiar with Vistro and its functionalities. Let's say we hope you are. And we're all well aware that Vistro's predominant use case is signal optimization and traffic impact analyses. This is also the bread and butter, let's say, of traffic engineering work. This is the stuff people do pretty much all day long. And in cities, regions, and states, and consultants use tools like Vistro as their daily workhorse. Again, something that they're probably doing a large percent of their projects in this type of tool. I mean, it may take up like 85% of the workforce is doing these types of projects and traffic engineering work. And the reason why is because, you know, Vistro is very fast, it's very easy to use, it's easy to review, and it gives that definitive result that you need, especially at that traffic engineering level. And it also integrates very well to the next levels of analyses that you might need. And in fact, Vistro is or could be the main tool that's used or the starting point on many designs and planning projects. So if you kind of look at these bullet points here, these are, you know, really the key bullet points for Vistro and why you would want to use Vistro on this type of traffic engineering work. And this slide shows you exactly what I mean. Here you see Vistro in the middle connecting VSUM and VISM. And if you want to expand your analyses, Vistro is a perfect starting point to start with deterministic type of tools and look at things at a really focus level, but then you can go into simulation and then you can go into planning and build further on those sides. And now as we add Umovity to the mix, this will bring in econolyte, and now Vistro, from this presentation that we're showing you today, will be able to integrate into the econolyte side by integrating with the traffic signal systems through Centracs. And we'll talk about that. So maybe you're not familiar with Centracs. Maybe this is the first time you've learned about Centracs. So let's explain what Centracs is. Centracs is the industry-leading advanced transportation management solution, and it directly interfaces with the traffic signal timings in the field, and it enables centralized deployment of new timing plans. So it's kind of like your signal management center from the field. Everything kind of goes into Centracs. And traffic operations teams utilize Centracs to monitor real-time signal health, and they also look at these traffic performance measures through Centracs. So you can see the heat map on this picture here with a few of the gauges and dials. This will give you all the information about how your signal system and signals are performing out in the field. So what are the benefits of integrating? The main benefit of this integration is the unity between this traffic operations or management team that's using Centracs and using the equipment out in the field with the planning and engineering departments. So let's just say a city has multiple departments here. They have them operations, they have the planning, they have the engineering. Generally speaking, those are separate departments. A lot of times they're operating in slightly different silos here and there. So with the Umovity offering and the integration between Centracs and Vistro, we can work together as a team in a streamlined workflow. And this Unity delivers the data to and from the field, and then this data can be analyzed within Vistro or any other PTV tool, and then sent back to the field. And we're providing a more automated process. And with this process, you're reducing a lot of the data error entries, errors that you may have out in the field, or entering data manually into other places from data sheets or something like that. You can have the data directly from the model going into the field hardware. Additionally, you're reducing some signal maintenance and retiming effort costs, because you're kind of starting to take those timings in from bulk from the analysis software and bringing it into the central software. And this efficiency also makes it easier to come up with special timing scenarios, such as events, closures, detours. And you can store hundreds of signal timing patterns in the controller. So you'll have basically timing plans built and made for anything, and you can quickly get those into the controller out in the field. And then finally, this fusion of traffic management and traffic engineering will keep your traffic signals fit and save you costs and time along the way. All right, so the main benefits of this, you have this two-way integration within the Umovity system. Data moves both ways within this. It can be between the traffic management to the traffic engineering side, or the traffic engineering back to the traffic management side. What's in the middle of this is Centracs, of course. It just sits in the middle of this exchange between the planning software and engineering software and the field hardware. And it's the one really doing a lot of the work, delivering that information back and forth from the field to the actual analysis tool. And in each direction, of course, there are specific use cases that can be served with each way that you go. And the first one we're going to look at is the field timings to Vistro. So in this use case, maybe you're working on a signal retiming project or a signal updating project where you update the time of day plans from a study. So the workflow may look like this, where you're going from the field hardware and you're filtering through Centracs because the hardware is linked to Centracs, and you're going then from Centracs into Vistro or Visum or Visum or Optima. But let's just talk about Vistro today. This data is coming in, and it allows you to do this very seamlessly between the field to the traffic engineering. Now, let's also look at a very special use case. And if you work in an agency, you probably are aware of this. There's the daily maintenance phone call that comes in. So it's some citizen maybe complaining about a signal timing or something like this. So this is where I would say this workflow is pretty magical. The call comes in, they say, hey, this timing's not right. So what you can do is open up your model and take a look at the model, what's in the model. You can pull in the field data through Centracs, get it into the model, maybe make some adjustments here and there that might make that citizen happy. And then you can deploy that revised timing back into the field, because again, it's two ways. And so this is I think for agencies a big win. And importantly, with the data quality, as I mentioned before, when you're deploying that back end through a central kind of central service, you don't need to bring the data sheets out to the field. You can do that from the Centracs side. All right, the next workflow is going from Vistro to the field timing use case. And a lot of the times this can happen maybe from new installations. So you're using Vistro for a traffic impact analysis, for a new development that needs a new signal, or you do a signal warrant analysis and say the stop sign now needs to be a new signal, or it's part of a design where you're building a new intersection that needs a new left turn lane or a new signal or something like this. Vistro is used to create those scenarios and analyze those scenarios. And once you have the timing set up, you can jumpstart the new signal setup within Centracs by inputting a lot of that information in. Of course, there's still some information that needs to be put into Centracs, but again, a lot of the bulk timing information can be brought in from Vistro. Okay, Tiffany, so we're gonna now jump into the first poll question here.
And the question number 1 is Centracs and Vistro integration something that would benefit your team? Yes or no?
All right, we're looking for your results right now. Hopefully they're good ones.
And we're going to close the poll. Thank you.
Okay, so the poll is closed, and we'll review your results after the webinar, and I'm excited to take a look at those. So the next section here is how does it work? Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Vistro to Centracs integrations. First, let's summarize the improvements that we made. Quite a bit of improvements, I would say, from the initial 2023 release to where we are now in Service Pack 5. A few things that we did was the import and export. So we're doing to and from Centracs for that two-way integration. And we can do this for a single intersection or multiple intersections along a corridor. And you'll see that in a demo. As well as now in Vistro, we have patterns. So you can import like basically a lot of the timing patterns, all the timing patterns from Centracs will then go into Vistro, and you'll have that list of patterns within the controller. And I'll show you what that looks like. Those patterns as well will go to Visum and Visum, which is nice. And then lastly here, I'll give you a sneak peek of our automatic maximum green calculation, which is, it sounds like a small feature. It is a small feature, but it really has a lot of big benefits within Vistro. So I'll be happy to show you what's coming with that calculation. All right, so I'm going to jump into a live demo here. And first, we're going to pop into Vistro 2023. There we go. All right, so in Vistro 2023 Service Pack 5, we did add a new example file. So if you go to Help, and then if you go to our Open Example directory, there is a directory. Here's all of the examples that we have. We do have a new folder here now called Timing Patterns. And within this folder, we have 2 Vistro files. We have one that is not complete. It's just kind of in a starting state. And then we have a complete file that shows you after you import the timings, what it should look like in a final state. So you can compare your efforts through this. And then we also have a tutorial PDF within here, and I have it open in another folder, so I'll open it up for you. Within this, this PDF, we give a short description about what this example's for, and I'm going to go through this in our demo. In this example, we're creating time-of-day scenarios from scratch, so you'll see kind of how to create these and how to manage these time-of-day scenarios within Vistro, and I'll give you tips. We'll import some Centracs timing plans into Vistro. We'll take a look at how to review these timing plans. And we'll also bring in some volumes within, let's just say you've got the volumes from MyoVision or from other provider. I'll show you how to bring in the volume data set into Vistro as well for each one of those peak time scenarios, I guess is the best way to say it. And then I'll show you the export process that will be required to take these time of day patterns into Centracs. And then later on, we'll show you some demos on the Centracs side. So like I said, this is a very extensive document. You can follow along here, and I'm gonna more or less paraphrase for this demo. So the first thing we wanna do is import the timing patterns into the base scenario from Centracs. And the reason why I say the base scenario is once everything's in the base, when you create other scenarios on top of this in scenario management, it will take the base data and copy it into the scenario. So then you can update it in the scenario. By putting it in the base, it creates that copy, and then, like I said, you can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. And you'll see that in a second. So the first thing we're gonna do is go to File, Import, Centracs. And what happens here is you're prompted to select a folder where the data is coming from. And I have a folder here that I'm using for this demo. Oops. I'm translating it to German, which isn't good. All right, there we go. So I put the folder in. This import recognizes that I have two import files that are found here. I have a timing file and I have a volume file. If you had multiple timing files or multiple volume files, they will also be listed here. And you can select all of them, none of them. You can check which one on and off, which one you want. We also have some import scopes. You can select it by node, by signal coordination group, or all nodes. This file only has one intersection, so none of these import sections really are gonna work. But anyway, let's pick the timing file because we want to import the timings. We'll just say all nodes for fun. And now I'm gonna click import, and that will import the timings. So you can kind of see the time space diagram did blip a little bit to the new timing set that came in. The other thing that we can see now is that I now have 3 timing patterns. And if I again look back to this file that I imported, I have 3 timing patterns within my file. I have plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. So those all did come in. And if I select the different patterns, you can see how the time space diagram is updating to each one of these patterns. So I successfully brought all of this stuff into the base. Now we also have this menu, so you can see what the patterns look like in a kind of smaller form. You can click patterns, which is the P, and this pulls up the pattern number, the cycle lengths, and the offsets. Eventually, at some point, we will probably have some description in here. That's a change in the data model, so we can't do it within Vistro 2023. We'll have to do it in Vistro 2024. But we'll have some description to kind of help you separate, which one's which. But you can see now I have 3 timing patterns. And then what you want to do is assign these timing patterns maybe to an AM scenario, a PM scenario, and a noon scenario, something like this. So we can go to scenario management and quickly create some scenarios here. So I'm going to create 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, I'm going to rename to, let's call it PM. All right, and then I'm going to create scenario 2. and I'm going to rename this to AM. I'm going to go out of order. And then I'm going to create scenario 3, which will be my noon peak. And there we go. So now I have 3 scenarios in my scenario manager. They're all dependent on the base. And I'm going to start assigning some the active patterns. So as you see in scenario 1, the first pattern was also in the base. It's also copied over to the scenario, so I don't have to do anything to scenario 1 because PM is pattern 1. If I go to the AM now, I want to switch the AM to pattern 2. So I can just select pattern 2 now, and then it selects the splits and timings for pattern 2 within Vistro. And then now the noon, I want to switch this to pattern 3. There we go. So now I have the noon is selected as pattern 3. Okay, so I'm going to return back to the AM scenario, and I want to start importing volumes. Right now, I have 0 volumes in my my intersection. If I turn on my volume arrows, it all shows 0. So I want to import the PM volumes. So I go to File. Oops, sorry. I go to File, and then I go to Import. I can go to UTDF. Again, I will find the folder. I actually believed I had it on my clipboard. Yes. I'm going to go to the volumes import file here, check this on. And then now I can go to the volume scope here. So since I'm looking for PM data, my PM peak hour starts at 16:45 or 4:45 in the afternoon. And so what that means, this is 15-minute data. You can see in the comments, it's 15 minutes. It's going to take 16:45 as the first period, and then add 4 periods after that. So I add these next 4 periods to make my hourly volume. So let's start with this. And then when I click import, you'll see the volume arrows have now all updated because now I have the peak hour volumes within each of the movements as it came in from the CSV file. And I'm going to do this one more time in the AM just so you can see the process again, and I won't do the noon just for the sake of time. Okay, so now you'll see some different volumes in for the AM. I'll go to Import, UTDF. Again, paste in my folder. Select the volume. And over in the volume import now, the AM starts at 7 o'clock. So I'll just pick the 7 in the morning and click import. And now my AM volumes are now in also within the AM scenario. All right, so you can do this for all the different scenarios, all the different timing patterns and things like this. Let's just imagine that we are doing a future study here and maybe the signal timing plans are out of date and we want to do a re-optimization. So to do this, let's say, I don't know, we added 5% traffic to the intersection. So I'm going to change the growth factor here to, an extra 5% of traffic at the intersection. And so now my traffic is growing. Let's see, but at this through here, it's growing by about 100 vehicles, something like this. This one's also 80 vehicles or so in growth. And I'm going to turn on my level of service. So you can see we have some intersections or some movements with poor level of services and things like this. I'm going to try to optimize this intersection within Vistro, so I can go to optimize split and cycle time. And I will just do a basic set here. We're going to look at the optimization between 100 seconds and 150 seconds with the step size of 5. Of course, you can change all of this stuff. I can also look at V over C balancing. I'm going to check that one on. And I'm going to click OK. And hopefully we get some optimization. It's a pretty congested intersection. All right, so you saw the splits update a little bit. There were some changes within the level of services. And so now we have a new optimal pattern for Centracs. So the next step that we'll do is go to the export. So if we want to add this to Centracs, this pattern, we'll go to export. And then we'll also go to Centracs. And then on this side, on the export side, you select the destination folder that you want to put the file in. So I'll use the same place. And then you can select which intersections you want to export. We can filter by coordination group in here, or we can check things on and off, things like this. You can select all of them or none if you had multiple. But again, we only have one intersection. We have the option of exporting all patterns or only exporting the active pattern. Now, why is this here? Because this is a scenario of the AM, and I did a modification. Really, at this point, only the morning is updated, right? So the other two scenarios, or the other two patterns, I didn't change. So I really only need to change the morning. So I would pick this export only active patterns, and Vistro will only export pattern 2 out, and then pattern 2 can be inserted into Centracs and updated in Centracs. If I clicked export all patterns, and everything would come out. And I mean, it wouldn't change anything, I guess, but it's probably better just to do only one. So I'm going to click export only active patterns, hit export. It goes through the export process. And then in my folder, hopefully I have the right folder. Yep. Here is the pattern. I'm going to open this up in Notepad so you can see what it looks like. And again, we're only exporting pattern 2, and then here's all the splits and timings for each of the signal phases, as well as the cycle length and the offset for that signal. And so then that would go back into Centracs, and that would be the next part I'm going to show you. But first, there's also a quick export. If you just want to export the active intersection and not go through that longer export process, you could just very well click this Centracs export button, and this would just export all patterns for the current intersection as a CSV for you. So that's like a really fast way to get a result. All right. Since we're in the Vistro area, the last thing I promised to show you was the max green, the auto calculation for max green. As you see, I'm in Vistro 2024 right now, so this has not been released yet. It should be released shortly. I guess the best way to explain this is in, let me make sure I have it selected. In your traffic control workflow, you get all the signal timing parameters. One of the parameters is called maximum green. That's what this parameter is. In older versions of Vistro, this generally was just set to like 30 seconds, and then the user had to import a value or define a value for this. And which I guess for Vistro's purposes, it was okay. It pretty much just ignored it. and it doesn't really need that value to do any sort of HCM calculations or anything like this. But now that we're really connecting up to Visum and we're connecting up to Centracs, this green value is becoming quite important. And if you're a Visum user, you may have been seeing a lot of those warnings about maximum green if you're going from Vistro to Visum. So this auto calculation that I'm showing you will hopefully get rid of a lot of those warnings that pop up in your error messages, as well as provide a better error-free file back into Centracs as well. So how does this work? If I change, maybe this amber time to 5 seconds, we'll see that the max green then will shorten to 5 seconds for this left turn, because since we're increasing the yellow time, that means the green time is decreasing. So if I change this to 5, we'll see that the max green then changes also to 5 automatically. So you really don't have to do math anymore, which is nice. The other thing it works with is, of course, the red, but it's also working with the delayed vehicle green. So if I add an LPI on my through movement here, let's just say for 5 seconds, you'll see that my max green will also change. It will take off 5 seconds from the green time. And now instead of 15, now is 10 for that movement. Yeah. And this also works with creating new intersections. So if I go in and create a new intersection, right now I don't have any signalization defined. If I go in and click create default signalization, it will now look at the maximum greens and fill these in, not being 30. It will actually fill it in with the real value that it's supposed to be for that newly created intersection. So, as I said, it's a small feature, but it's a big feature in my opinion, and it really will save a lot of time within Vistro. Okay, so that's the end of the Vistro demo, and I'm going to pop back open our presentation here. And we're going to start looking at the Centracs side of this. What improvements have we done with Centracs recently? To summarize it, we now have a local ID number within Centracs, and this will help link the intersections between Centracs and Vistro. And we have also the import and export side of Centracs. As you saw, we need that data on the Vistro side as well. So this is providing that two-way street between both products. So linking the Vistro model ID to Centracs. If you're familiar with Centracs, this might look familiar to you, I guess. If not, this is the first time you're seeing it. Sorry, but within Centracs there is a section. So a section is, let me get the pointer up here so you can see. A section is basically like what is a coordination group in Vistro. So it's more or less the corridor or the district. It's any of the signals that are tied together. So that's a section. But then below that, there's intersections. And this is where then you would apply the Vistro ID number. So you would right click on the intersection and go to edit properties. And within those edit properties, then you would go ahead and add that intersection ID number. Now, typically I would say like a Vistro intersection ID number is coming from the agencies like infrastructure map or however they number their signals. I would say modelers tend to follow that guideline and that rule there. And up to this point, Centracs really didn't have a place to store this. So we needed this ID to kind of match the two models together. So when we're importing and exporting multiple intersections back and forth in a batch process, we know exactly where to place the information. And then next, we have the export. And I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Here you can select the entire section that I was talking about before. Or you can select that single intersection again, and basically again do like a right click and then click the import export, and it pulls up this combined menu of both import export. And this time you would click the export tab and then define the folder and basically send your phasing files and your timing files that could be imported into Vistro. And then flip that around, we have the import process. So from the Vistro demo, we created that file for import. This is exactly where you would put it in. So you go again to the intersection or section that you want to import your timings into. And then you pull up that same dialog, but this time click the import tab. And this time it will open up that folder where all of your Vistro import files are, and you select that folder. And then Centracs will read all of those files that you have for the section or the file specifically for that intersection. And at the same time, it will bring in those plans that you identified. Then you can also review this imported data before you deploy it out in the field. So there's a signal editor that will pop up that's actually shown on the screen now. This will allow you to see all the different phasing and timings and splits, and also let you commit those changes. Okay, so let's take a pause for a second and look into poll number 2 question, and we'll finish up the presentation.
And the second question is, how often do you need access to signal timing data for your traffic modeling? And we're going to give it a couple more seconds, and then we have a third question. And we're going to close this question and move to the second one. And our fourth question is, how accessible is signal timing data for your travel models? And we're going to close this question and go back to the presentation. Thank you so much for participating.
All right, we're in the final leg of the presentation here, and I want to share with you what's coming up next and more. So the functionality that I showed is our first steps as Umovity together and integrating Econolite and PTV. So more or less, let's just say it's an MVP or something like this. It's still very usable functionality that you guys can go out and start using today. But we've had a lot of ongoing discussions between Econolite and PTV on how to continue this and move forward with additional functionality. And I've listed 3 topics here that we're currently exploring and potential next steps. So between Vistro and Vissim, I know a lot of you have asked, like, how can we get the signals closer together and data model and structure and things like this? Patterns was a big part of that equation, and we actually did get closer with this. And I do want to pop up just real quick what that means. So if I have this Vissim model of the example that I just showed, if you go to the signal controllers in here and open up the ring barrier controller for that signal, Looking at basically the patterns now, if you right click, this now opens up all the different patterns that are available within Visum. Patterns 1 is the one that, you know, I believe it was the PM. Pattern 2 now is the AM, so it did change a little bit. And pattern 3 is that noontime that came from that file. So we do have different patterns now within Visum, which is really cool. And what else is really nice is now within Visum, with all that pattern information, you can start using the schedule, especially when it's coming from Vistro data. So I can go out and complete my schedule and then fill in the pattern start times, when these patterns start and end, kind of thing. So that's really neat functionality. And no, I don't want to say that. Whatever. Yeah, there we go. And then on the Visum side, it's very similar. So again, this is the same intersection from the Visum side. And if I go into the edit signal programs, it's very similar interface here. It's pretty much the exact same interface. You can see that we have the different timing patterns and plans from the data on the Visum side. So we're really closely integrated now, especially with the patterns. That's helped, but we do want to make this a little bit better. The next step is the integration with EOS directly to Visum and Vistro. And if it's in Visum, then it should automatically start getting closer to Vistro. You can see the picture on the screen here. There was kind of a prototype, or what we were calling the alpha of this integration. You can see the top photo is actually the EOS controller, and then the bottom photo is Visum running with the EOS controller user interface kind of next to it. So we're already moving and prototyping this direction, which is, I think, pretty cool. And then finally, this last point, Brian's on the call. I've been working with Brian and our development team pretty close on how to integrate Centracs more with Vistro and what can we do, as well as with Visum and Visum, and make these direct connections with Centracs. But I guess the point here is to say we would love to have your thoughts and feedback on these topics. If you have specific workflows and needs that touch these points, or maybe other points that you have, feel free to reach out to us. I listed our email addresses, but of course, you kind of know where to find us anyway. We're also on the LinkedIn forums and stuff like that. As well as we have the Umovity contact form. That should be able to go to both places and go to the people that need to see those forms. So we would be definitely excited to have your feedback and see what needs you have for this type of integration. All right, and I'm gonna finish out the presentation with just one more poll question before we get into the Q&A.
Our last question is, would you like further information on Vistro with Centracs? And it looks like everyone has answered. So I'm going to close the poll. Thank you so much for participating in our poll questions today.
Okay, and I've been waiting very patiently to show this slide within a PTV Talks. Yeah, so I mean, as you saw from today's presentation, Vistro is very important within both sides of Umovity. And you know, my personal view, I know Bill on the call, he's also sharing these thoughts. I mean, we think Vistro is the best thing in the world. So Vistro surrounds us and binds us and holds Umovity together, to steal the Star Wars quote. Yeah, anyway, I'll just stop there before I geek out anymore. But we'll love to hear your questions.
Thank you, Adam, for the great presentation. We have a few questions here. I'll start with one that says, if you optimize, and feel free to keep typing in as we are talking through the questions that have already been entered. Question, if you optimize timings in multiple scenarios and then export the RBC, will it export all the updated patterns into the same RBC file?
If you update multiple patterns within the same scenario and export the RBC file through like a Vism export or something like this, yes. So the RBC, how that works with the Vism export is that it exports the current scenario. So if you've optimized all of those patterns within that scenario, it will then take those new patterns into the RBC. Yes.
All right, and then question regarding, sorry. You showed editing the delayed vehicle green, and this question relates to that, which is if we want to define an LPI in vSim, how can we do that?
Yeah. So actually, I'm trying to remember if it's in the Vistro user manual for that. So we're currently working on this actually, which is the good point. We're working on this now in the Vism team to make LPIs very super easy, kind of like how it is in Vistro to code in the RBC. So that's one answer to this question. So stay tuned for that, probably in 2024 this fall. So for the other part that will help you today is if you put the LPI in Vistro and then export that to Vism, it will model that LPI. So we have under the pedestrian and bicycles folder an example for this. Leading pedestrian intervals, there's a couple locations where we show this. But within this PDF, I believe it will discuss this technique and what to do. So you're actually wanting to go to the Vism overlap settings and you create like some dummy overlaps, and you're more or less overlapping a movement with itself to create that LPI. And it's not difficult to do. It's all here if you want to look at this PDF and figure out the process. But Vistro to Vism should automatically do this for you. So that's the big one with that.
Great. Next question, you showed multiple signals in the same section in the Centracs interface. Can you import the complete section into Vistro, and can Vistro run a signal optimization for the full corridor and share that back?
Exactly right. So going back to, I guess it would be the export, and I'm gonna pause this right here. So we have the sections right here, and this also has an import export. And Brian, you can chime in, I guess, if on this part. So this will then look at all of the signals under that section and export out the UTDF data for each one of those signals. And then on the Vistro side, when you do the actual import, so if I do import Centracs, I'm trying to think if I have a folder with multiple files that I can quickly grab here, and I'll show you what it looks like. Bear with me 1 second. All right, so I have multiple intersections worth of data here. So then you'll start seeing something like this where you have timing plans for each intersection that was exported out of Centracs. And now these timing plans are in the import part on the Vistro side. You could just check all of these and click import. Or again, you can select the scope and say, I want this coordination group to only import. And that's the Vistro coordination group. So if one of these signals fell outside of that coordination group, it would exclude it from the import. So there's flexibility there, but then you would click import and then all that timing comes in. And then if you went to the network optimization tool and did a full network optimization on the export side, let me just copy this intersection just so you can see two intersections. So now I have, well, now I have three intersections. I did it twice. So now I have three intersections in this model. If I go to the export Centracs, we can now see that there's three intersections for me to export. I would export then all of those intersections back for Centracs to import. And Brian, hopefully I said that all correctly.
Yep, that's all correct.
Awesome.
We have a couple questions that I'm going to read both of them. They're basically the same question. The first says, does Vistro work with any version of Centracs? And the other one is, what version of Centracs has this feature?
Yeah, so you are going to need the sorry, I'm going to need the later version of Centracs, so a 2.6 version of Centracs to be able to support the feature.
There's been a few questions about getting a copy of this. Yes, we will provide a link to the recorded video afterwards. The next question, is there a COM interface for Vistro?
No. that question does come up more and more and more. So I'm going to write that down and make sure we make another feature, add the request for it.
On the Centrac side, the question is, once the optimized timings are imported into Centracs, does Centracs also have its own real-time optimization or adaptive capabilities?
Yes, so we do support real-time adaptive, most recently with our adaptive product. So it'll do real-time analysis and optimization with that.
All right, and do you need to have a special add-on or license in order to integrate Centracs? I presume that question is regarding maybe either side, but maybe Adam, you can talk first about from the Vistro side.
Yeah, so with Vistro, it's built-in functionality. So if you, I guess, are buying Vistro today, you would have the capability to download the latest service pack and have that functionality. And if you have a current maintenance contract, then you're able to also download that service pack with the current functionality. So yeah, it's open for everyone.
So why don't you show how to check our latest service pack? So it's 2023 Service Pack 5, as Adam had said. And then if you had either active maintenance or an active subscription, then you can go ahead and download that service pack.
Yeah, so you can always learn about what your service pack is. I mean, it says it up here in the title what service pack you are currently using. But if you see that you want Service Pack 5 for 2023, you can go to Help and then Service Pack Download. And then this pulls up all of the different versions of Vistro. Again, if you have maintenance, you can get all of these. That's fine, no problem. You can run multiple Vistros at one time. That's no issue. But for 2023, it's showing the current one is Service Pack 5. And as I said, the Max Green will be coming out fairly soon. And then that will be Service Pack 6.
Perfect. And then I think this relates back to Brian, maybe what you explained, but if you could repeat probably similarly about what version of Centracs, it says, what about the importing into Centracs? So is that I guess back to the question of, do you need a special add-on or a special license in order to do that?
Yeah, great question. It is part of our UTDF export package, which is an add-on at the moment. So that would be required for the feature. And the version of Centracs, again, is going to need to be one of the newer version 2.6 major release version.
All right, perfect. Well, we're out of time at this point. If there's any other questions that we didn't answer, we can get back to you via email. Feel free to still type them in, and we'll follow up with you afterwards. Tiffany, did you want to say any closing comments?
I just want to put out another reminder that we'll provide a recording of this session and a follow-up email. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me at marketing.us@ptvgroup.com.
All right, well, thank you all once more, and I think we can close out.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Umovity. Mobility for humanity.